What is the role that meditation has in living a happy life? And how important is it for living a happy life? The quick answer to that is it plays a pretty large role and is extremely important. In this video, I want to tell you why that's actually the case, and I want to very quickly define a happy life so that going forward, whenever I say that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Typically, when we think of a happy life, it's kind of this like cartoon idea. It's a complete fantasy, and our mind just kind of concocts this illusion of like, when my life looks like this, then I'll finally be happy. It basically forms some kind of image, some kind of story, a narrative that gets us to chase something that isn't occurring right now with the promise that when we finally get that thing, we'll actually be happy. When our life looks like this, when my bank account looks like this, when my family is this, when all these details finally go my way, then I'll be happy. And of course, that moment never really comes. It's funny because let's say that moment actually does come, right? You get all the things you want, you can finally relax. How long is that actually going to last? Of course, all this stuff is bound to change. It's impermanent. And not only that, but by always chasing this like illusion of when I get what I want and when life turns out the way I want it to, then I'll be happy, by continuously chasing that, you start to actually build a mind that continuously rejects the present moment. It's continuously rejecting direct experience. And when you actually do get what you want, you can't even fully enjoy it. You can't fully be open to it. You can't fully be present to it because you've wired yourself to be so closed to life. You've wired yourself to be rejecting it and kind of like aggressive and hostile and manipulative towards it in favor of some goal that you have. And you just kind of start to miss actual life, miss actual experience. So a happy life isn't one that just involves endlessly getting what I want and then feeling this particular way, but it's more so to do with beginning to understand, appreciate, love, and fully be grounded in the full spectrum of human experience, to the point where no particular aspect of experience can kind of like throw you off, trigger you, or disturb you. To the point where no particular aspect of experience is something that you feel like you need to avoid, right? You don't have to avoid the experience of grief or loss. You don't have to avoid the experience of anger. You don't have to avoid the experience of setting a boundary. You don't have to avoid the experience of your own happiness and your own love and gratitude for life. You feel safe to even feel your positive feelings, because we actually do block those out as well. You don't have to avoid the experience of X, Y, or Z. Every single experience that arises is something that you can be fully grounded within and not have to like avoid it. You don't have to avoid the feeling of that experience, because that's the thing that we're really trying to avoid. We're trying to avoid a particular feeling, pain essentially, whether it's emotional or physical. We're always trying to avoid that. And I'm not saying that, of course, you have to like inflict any kind of physical pain on yourself, or like stop avoiding all sorts of physical pain, like, you know, just lean your hand on top of the stove, it's fine, whatever, do some meditation. Of course, that's not what I'm saying. But I want you to kind of really understand what's going on here on planet Earth, is that we're trying to find a happy life, and strategies that simply fail. They promise happiness, they're all illusions, and when we finally do get what we want, if and when, our minds are actually trained to not actually even enjoy it, because they're actually trained to be closed to it, to reject it. Our body's trained to be tense and rigid in a sort of constant defensive state against life. And of course, when we begin to have any kind of understanding of human psychology whatsoever, especially just investigating our own through meditation, we quickly realize that, yes, I actually do create a lot of my own suffering, and I concoct a lot of illusions that lead to this sort of hamster wheel of chasing happiness. Kind of just chasing strategies that never work. So in this video, I want to just really begin to outline why does meditation actually matter? And there's a lot of things that matter in building a happy life for you. There's a whole bunch of stuff. It's complicated, but there's some very foundational aspects that you can't really remove them. Just to list some are just making sure you have good health. It's hard to be happy when your health is constantly deteriorating, right? It's very difficult to be happy when your energy levels are constantly low, right? So really just valuing your health is important. Learning how to navigate relationships, learning how to actually set and maintain boundaries, learning the psychology of the opposite sex for your intimate relationships, so you know what they need and kind of how to like actually relate to them, how to be competent and skilled in your relationships, your career, having a career that just simply aligns with you, aligns with your values. It becomes an expression of your personality, your soul, your consciousness. And of course, consciousness itself. This is totally essential for actually really living a very, very profound and meaningful life, which is really what begins to cultivate your awareness, essentially, begin to cultivate it through the practice of meditation. And this is like the ultimate foundation, because all that other stuff is kind of resting upon this foundation of your consciousness. And once you begin to kind of raise your consciousness, all this other stuff starts to align with it, since your life is actually organizing itself around your inner world. Your life is organizing around itself around your consciousness, around your mind, around your level of psychological development, around your ego, essentially. So when you begin to actually change this stuff, your external life actually begins to change as well, because, well, who's kind of controlling that one? It's the systems that make up you. That's what's in control of a lot of the things in your life. And most people aren't really aware of any of that kind of stuff. I don't want to go into too much detail about that here. I got to remain on the topic. So let's talk about really cultivating awareness. So this helps us, the practice of meditation, to become more aware of things like thoughts, emotions, instincts, behaviors. And you start to actually just observe experience without judgment, leading to actual self-understanding. You begin to just witness life as it actually is without needing to always get so involved in it, to change it, to manipulate it, to be reactive towards it. And from this place of just being aware and just watching, your ability to change things actually radically increases. Your ability to actually make decisions that are just simply more aligned with you. Your ability to really process an emotion, for example. Your ability to just not always have to be in survival mode. This begins to increase. By actually cultivating awareness, you have the power to change things that at one point seemed unchangeable. About 95% of our life is ran by the subconscious mind, right? Things that we're not even aware of. And then by learning to be aware, all the stuff that seemed out of our control and unchangeable and, it was going on, we didn't even know it was going on, this stuff starts to emerge to the forefront of our consciousness, allowing us to heal, process, observe, change. It's kind of like you're going to work on your own mind. You're like a mechanic of your own mind. So by actually just cultivating awareness in daily life, this is actually a big shift, because most of the time we're kind of walking around like zombies or sleepwalkers, and we're kind of just lucky enough to not bump into anything, because if you observe your own experience, how often are you kind of just lost in thought? Or are you actually present to the sensations in your body, your actual sights, what you're hearing? Are you present in the senses? When you actually use your mind, are you truly using it, or is it using you? Are you just always kind of lost in it? Or are you always just stuck in the same repetitive thought loops that keep you stuck, the same beliefs that keep you stuck, the same thoughts on repeat, right? Is it not a lot of the exact same things on repeat that simply never seem to change? So when you begin to understand that a lot of your experience is simply controlled by things that you're not aware of, it's actually kind of scary. Because there was this illusion that like we were really controlling it. There was this whole illusion that what I was doing was my choice, when it actually wasn't. It was just some form of conditioning that like got stuck in you. And this is what was actually running the show. We come to identify with those layers of conditioning. It forms our ego. And this is just what controls our life. And what if we could just simply go into that stuff and begin to kind of rewire it? let go of a lot of the defensiveness, start investigating a lot of the reactivity, start looking into the numbness of our body. Start learning how to just fully inhabit our own self, fully inhabit our own existence. So this actually begins to very deeply shift the course of one's life, because these patterns are controlling us, and this is kind of what's determining our destiny, so to speak, are just these patterns that we're wired by, that are wired in us, I mean. And if we don't consciously intervene, they're going to continuously play themselves out. And conscious intervention allows us to simply change them to things that are healthy for us, to things that serve us, to things that help us connect with other people in more meaningful ways, and ways that actually allow us to provide value to mankind in more meaningful ways. A lot of the ways in which people provide value to mankind isn't actually value, it's harming mankind. So reducing stress and anxiety is another really big one. There's this sort of unavoidable element to being human, of being an animal, being scared, knowing that one day you're going to die. It's completely unavoidable. And fear actually just kind of rules a lot of human behavior and human life. And it goes unconscious. Right? Keep that in mind, that 95% of life is controlled by things that you're not even aware of, if not more. So fear is a massive motivator and controller that's really going on here. And without mindfulness, you're not really going to have any way to begin to investigate it directly, to challenge, let's say, your anxiety, to feel it, to process it, to learn how to come into connection with these sort of like struggling parts of you. And again, this pattern is going to play itself out for the rest of your life. You're essentially going to be ruled by fear rather than by openness. You're going to be ruled by a lot of unnecessary suffering rather than a conscious life. Moving on is just improving focus and attention. Now, the first time I meditated, I actually couldn't do it for more than about 30 seconds. I was easily distracted. I was frustrated. I got up in anger, actually. Lasted about 30 seconds. And now I can do hours. And the point of this is just that it's a skill. It's something that just kind of has to be practiced. And without intentionally practicing it, it's not really going to go anywhere. And it's hard to actually sit there and focus, right? Even if you don't have ADHD, for example, it's hard to actually sit there and focus, because essentially, when you're actually focusing on yourself, you're starting to notice a lot of things that you once avoided, like maybe some parts of your body are uncomfortable. You don't really want to feel it. Maybe there's thoughts you have that disturb you. You kind of just distract yourself. Why? In order to escape yourself. You distract yourself in order to avoid the things inside of you that you don't want to face, whether it's through a phone addiction, TV addiction, eating when you're bored, whatever it is. The whole world nowadays is like just completely filled up with pointless distractions, and it's actually sickening. We don't really have any idea how sick mankind is, and if we did, it would be not a very pretty thing for us to want to swallow. But all these sort of distractions that are destroying our ability to focus, all the heavy metals that destroy our ability to focus, our ignorance around human emotions that destroy our ability to focus, all this stuff is actually, of course, destroying the quality of our life. Because in order to get meaningful results in a lot of the areas of your life that you really desire meaningful results from, you're going to need this ability to sustain focus and attention towards something over time. Like reading a book on relationships, for example, in order to improve your relationships. That requires you to grab a book, sit down, and actually read it, focusing on it for time without getting distracted, without needing to jump on to something else. And of course, if you don't have any kind of way to train your mind into being more present, being more focused, if you're just always easily distracted, you're easily restless, and you have to avoid, escape, you're looking to get away, this actually, of course, comes back to bite you in the ass. Because if you want to have some kind of meaningful results in your life in a lot of different areas, there's just no way around you needing to apply attention towards something. If you want to go to the gym, you're going to have to focus on you weightlifting. If you're going to want to have a great conversation with someone, you're going to have to focus on them and interacting with them. So there's just going to be throughout your life, and you can just observe this for yourself. You don't have to believe me at all. Just observe that in order to actually do anything meaningful, you'll have to apply attention towards that thing and continuously interact with it over time without always getting distracted. And the more you get distracted, the more it actually throws off your ability to get those results that you actually really need, that you actually really want. So by improving your focus and attention through something like meditation, it simply helps you to remain on track and to actually notice when you're being distracted in the first place. Because a lot of us don't even recognize all the stuff around us as distractions. We don't even have that point of view of like being on our phones for 5 hours a day as just distractions, like a distraction in order to just avoid reality. We don't even have that point of view. Many of us, we think this is just kind of life and it's normal and whatever, everyone else is kind of doing it, so who cares? What's the big deal, Lucas? But of course, if you kind of have these sort of higher standards for your life and what you want it to be, who cares kind of flies out the window. Kind of begins to matter. Next is emotional regulation, emotional intelligence. A massive thing that determines your behavior and the quality of your life is your emotions and your emotional intelligence. So by actually learning to just kind of raise your emotional intelligence and to just be more aware of them, learning how to feel them, learning how to connect with them, learning what they're telling you. Your emotions are this sort of internal guidance system. You don't have to overthink every single one of them, but they're valuable ways that your body actually signals things to you. Like you can get angry, for example, because you actually have to set a boundary, you have to be firm. You can feel grief because you have to let go of something that is lost, something that's gone. You can feel happy, for example, and excited because something really aligns with you, something really fits you. Your heart can open up and you can feel love because something is allowing it to open. Or maybe you're just sitting in meditation and allowing it and just simply allowing it to open. So there's a whole lot of reasons as to why you feel the things that you actually feel, and you get more skilled at understanding this stuff as you meditate and of course as you actually read books. I have a really good one down here called Emotional Intimacy by Robert Augustus Masters. He's also got the book Bringing Your Shadow Out of the Dark, which I have somewhere behind me as well. Absolutely fantastic book. Really just even studying your emotions is something that needs to be done. Just reading books on emotions to get this sort of comprehensive idea in your mind of like what's going on here. It's a hard, messy, sometimes painful subject, and it's controlling us. It's a part of our everyday life, our moment-to-moment experience. How we're feeling is determining a lot of things that we're doing and where we're putting our attention and what we're working towards in our moment-to-moment experience. So of course, simply learning to just become more emotionally intelligent, that's going to have a lot of good impacts on your health, on your goals, your career, on your relationships. This is going to be one of the biggest things that actually determines your success in life and your ability to actually create a life that actually aligns with you, with your own psychology, with your own being, with your energy, with your soul. A point that I actually don't really have written down is actually carving out a life that actually really aligns with you. You have to kind of know what fits you. You have to begin to have that intuition of what fits you. And this is actually quite hard. It's something that I've had to build up for many years. And it takes a lot of practice to actually build up this kind of intuition of like, what kind of path actually fits me? What path is like really truly meant for me? And by learning to just kind of tune into yourself and get rid of all the external distractions and bullshit through meditation, you actually begin to like cultivate that intuition at like a 10 times speed. And just by learning to pay close attention to feelings inside of you, when you feel drained, when you feel energized, right? Learning to pay attention to when you have to set a boundary, when you don't have to, when to open up, when to be assertive, etc. Just kind of noticing these sort of subtle nuances to life through meditation and just being observant of them allows you to just develop this intuition of like, what path should I actually go down? And that's quite hard. That's actually not a very easy thing to do because we can start going down a path in life that isn't very good for us, a path in life that actually doesn't fit us well, but we can be told that it does. We can be influenced by people around us that it actually does fit us very well. We can convince ourselves, we can delude ourselves into thinking that it does when it actually doesn't. So just, you got to be careful with this one. It's a pretty hard one. There's also a lot of physical and mental health benefits, which I don't really want to go too much into here, but like mental clarity, mood stability, just a whole lot of things that actually begin to clear up when you meditate. The thing is that when we're not actually consciously observing our life, we're lost in the sauce, as they say. We're lost in thoughts, we're lost in patterns, we're lost in the habits that we've been conditioned with. For better or worse, if it's a positive habit that is healthy for us, that's great. But a lot of them simply aren't, and we find ourselves stuck in them. We actually find ourselves even addicted to our own suffering, to the creation of our own pain. Meditation allows us to begin to wake up to that and change that through the power of your own awareness. And all this kind of stuff together works quite well to actually promote a sense of personal growth. And this is actually a need, right? To actually feel like, let's say, you're productive, or to feel healthy, to feel connected to people, to feel like you're self-actualizing. These are all psychological needs, psychological emotional needs, physical needs as well, that all help you to live a life that actually is beautiful for you, to live a life that's actually just very aligned with you, to live a life that is a good fit with you, to raise your consciousness, to raise your psychological development. All this stuff is just really needed for living a life that is the highest quality human life. Of course, high quality is subjective, but the way that I'm using it here is raising your consciousness, raising your psychological development. Sorry, I got something in my eye. Essentially, to me, a high quality life means raising your consciousness, living in alignment with consciousness. My eye is bugging me, so I apologize about that. So meditation actually just really encourages reflection, which is so essential for personal growth, because personal growth, of course, means some kind of shift in your being that begins to actually change the direction of your life. It actually begins to change a pattern by dismantling it and then reinforcing a new one. Typically something that is actually more aligned with something more, I'm going to use the word complex, a higher stage of development, a higher level of consciousness. And overall, this is very important for actually living a life with a greater sense of satisfaction. Not to mention, meditation, of course, also supports a lot of spiritual exploration and a deeper connection to oneself, other people, the environment that we find ourselves in, the actual essence of what life is. There's all sorts of spiritual benefits to meditation that begin to cultivate over time as you kind of do it properly, as you kind of are guided towards where to look, kind of what to do, right? And then you learn some of the basics, and then you can kind of take off the training wheels and then just kind of ride freely as if you were riding a bike. That's it for this video. If you're interested in working one-to-one with me, you can apply to do so. Link is in the pinned comment. One final point is that this is just one video. There's a lot more information. There's a lot more perspectives. I encourage you to actually study a lot more than just one of my videos. I encourage you to actually check out my free book list, read a bunch of the books on them, really fill up your mind with the information that you actually need in order to get to really where you want to be in life, and to get to wherever that is, to just really build the mind that's capable of solving your life's problems, to build the mind that's capable of having healthy relationships, of self-actualizing, of self-transcending. Right? You need good information in your mind. You need dozens of points of view that you're not going to get from my videos. Hundreds of points of view that I can't go into because I'm just one person. Right? So I really encourage you to just take that one pretty seriously. Thanks for watching.